Welcome to the final round of the Ohio University Eastern Shark Challenge. I am Ed Maurer. I am the Energy Institute Manager for Belmont College. Belmont College is a two-year community college located across the street from Ohio University Eastern, and I am pleased to be your Master of Ceremonies this evening. Tonight, a team from Ohio University, Athens, Ohio main campus will face off against a team from Granville, Ohio's Denison University. The member of the team finishing in first place will share a cash prize of $2,500. The members of the team finishing in second place will share a cash prize of $750. Students are encouraged to develop innovative ideas in the process, product or business models, and with a focus on economic development in Southeast Ohio and the Ohio Valley region. They are judged on how well their products, equipment, staffing, tools, business location, target market, advertising, social responsibility, competitor analysis, profitability, and financing, and exit strategies are described and are articulated in their business proposals. Shark Challenge is made possible through Shark Challenge is made possible through major support from Tech Growth Ohio, an endeavor of the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs at Ohio University, the Office of Regional Higher Education at Ohio University, and from the Office of the Dean of Ohio University Eastern's campus. I'd like for you to meet the members of this year's Shark Challenge judging panel. Crystal Geyer of Ohio University is the Associate Director of the university's Center for Entrepreneurship and is also a first-time judge for Shark Challenge. Crystal's prior work in entrepreneurship was at Ball State University and The Ohio State University. First-time challenger judge Pamela Ventura, president of the Toronto-based National Credit Financial Executive Forum credit manager at Throats Thread Apparel Incorporated, a multifaceted service provider in the high fashion industry, is our second judge. Unfortunately, Pamela has had a problem and is unable to join us today. Tom Coughlin is also new to the judging panel for Shark Challenge. Tom, who has taught both undergraduate and graduate classes at Villanova University, has been advisor to and investor in startups in food services, online retail, and technology. Wendy Anderson, a longtime Shark Challenge judge, is director of the St. Clairsville Area Chamber of Commerce. This is Ohio University Eastern's hometown chamber. Wendy is a longtime Shark Challenge judge whose retail business experience is substantial. Ed Luman, manager of engagement and partnerships at Ohio Southeast Economic Development, an agency that serves 25 counties of Southeast Ohio, is also a returning judge. Ed has rich experience as a newspaper publisher. Now, about our competing teams. Our first team from Ohio University, coached by Darcy Wagner. Darcy is a member of the marketing department of Ohio University, has coached teams in Shark Challenge since events in the inception in 2016. Members of this team is Matthew Didrich, majoring in accounting, also certified consumer research, Olivia Kaiser, a participant in Ohio University's Honors Tutorial College and majoring in business administration and MIS analytics. Maxwell James is majoring in MIS and business analytics. Ohio University will present Southeast Ohio Server Farms. From Denison University, we have as coach Rick Copeland of Red Fame Lab, an entrepreneurship and consulting organization at Denison University. They are participating in Shark Challenge for the first time. Members of the Denison University team are Sweaver Singh, who has a major in economic and data analytics, plus a computer science minor. Arthur Patel, student member majoring in economics with a theater minor. And Susanna Snell, who is majoring in educational studies and communication. Denison University's project will be Dorm Buddies. Each team will have 12 to 15 minutes to make their presentation, followed by a Q&A session by our judges. And by agreement, Ohio University will present first. So I'll turn it over to our Ohio University team for their presentation.
Hello, I want to thank everyone for being here today. We're the Ohio University main campus team, and I'm Matt.
Can we go to the next slide, please?
Okay. So our company that we came up with is Appalachian Access, which is a internet service provider or an ISP. Next slide, please. So why did we choose an ISP? The main reason is just to deliver fast, reliable internet to people in Southeastern Ohio, because it's proved to be an issue for them to get with a company that is fast, reliable, and affordable for them. And also this will create job opportunities in various different sectors, such as infrastructure development and community service, as well as increased internet access improves the economy by attracting new businesses, as well as helping out those local businesses. And then I'll pass it off to Matt to explain how it works in the next slide.
All right, so an ISP isn't like a restaurant or like a store. It can be a little confusing. So explaining how it works, so our company is going to be a tier 3 provider. So tiers work in the sense that so you think of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 is typically your spectrums or your larger or major players in the system. Tier 2s are typically your intermediary, so typically provide service to like cities or large areas. And then tier 3s provide internet service to smaller areas, counties, or regions. So our tier 3 provider would be a direct. We basically provide direct access by what we call renting line time, or by getting a direct connection from a tier 2, and then taking that internet access and then providing a direct connection to our customer. So we can go to the next slide, please. Here's a quick little demonstration of how it works. The tier 2 provider there, we would run a cable from the tier 2 provider, establish a connection to our system or our server. From there, we're able to distribute that internet connection via a direct cable, via a fiber optic line to our customers. So in this case, an apartment building, but it could be a house or a business as well. So moving forward. So why have ISPs struggled? So why have other companies not taken the opportunity to invest in a place that doesn't really have a great internet connection? Number one is infrastructure challenges. It can be very difficult to design this kind of company, especially in an area such as Southeastern Ohio. We're not in the Great Plains, so it's a lot of very hilly terrains. So designing and building the infrastructure necessary to develop a fiber optic network can be very difficult. The limited competition too. So since there aren't many companies out there that are competing against one another to develop a ISP out there in Southeastern Ohio, the lack of competition really reduces the incentive for these companies to improve their service quality. So these companies are getting away with offering subpar internet access when their customers really need greater service and greater access to high quality internet. And then finally is the terrain complexity. I touched a little bit about this in the first infrastructure challenges, but just to further emphasize, southeastern Ohio's rugged terrain can be really a big obstacle for developing and installing secure lines to houses and businesses. So that's just another challenge for why ISPs have not succeeded well in southeastern Ohio. So moving forward, I'd like to pass it off to Olivia to really talk about the why behind our decision to go for ISP.
Hi, so yeah, our initiatives are affordable fiber optic internet service for this area, community impact and economic development, and a commitment to education. So first, affordable fiber optic internet services. There are many different internet services that are provided in this area, but none of them are as reliable and trustworthy as many want. Many people are unhappy with their internet services, and we want to relieve that burden at a good price, because even though so many people don't like their services, it's all that there's available, and typically it's very, very expensive, much more expensive than what it's worth. So we're wanting to solve this problem for the specific community, because it is initially hard to get access. Then when you do get access, it's not very good, and it's very difficult for families to pay that bill, especially in one of the poorest regions in America. There needs to be a better solution to this issue of internet than is what currently is being provided. And then community impact and economic development. The internet is so necessary for everything that we do in economics nowadays. So business, work, school, leisure, all of those things require internet now. And for this area to develop economically, for people to want to live here, for businesses to want to start here, we need better internet service. And it's so important to be able to reach those places that want to, or those businesses and people that want to advance, but are having a hard time because of not having proper internet service. And then a commitment to education. I forgot to mention this, but I'm from Southeast Ohio. I'm from here, and I personally encounter these issues with internet connectivity, especially in education. I was in high school here during COVID, and people would just drop off the planet during that time because you would just never see them again, because they didn't have internet access to keep connected with their school community. The school even tried to give out hotspots to everybody, and so many students were like, the hotspots don't even work, so we're not even going to use them. And there are people I know that had to get all of their schoolwork done in the classroom, and because outside of school, their family didn't have Wi-Fi. You would go to their house and there was no service. So these students are getting left behind in an area that's already disadvantaged because of the internet service. So there's a dire need to improve this. Next slide, please. This is further evidence as to why this is so important. We put out a Reddit on r/Ohio on a Reddit thread about asking people about in Southeast Ohio about their experiences with poor internet usage. And people talked about consistently, we didn't get very good service. It wasn't very high speed, or they would say it was high speed, but then it's not really high speed. And then after so much use, it would just completely slow down. And then the price just keeps getting higher, even though the service does not get better. Next slide, please. And here are more testimonies from people online talking about how they've just never had good internet here for as long as they've lived here. So like even AT&T, which is so well known as a reliable internet service, still fell short many times. Next slide, please. So for some similar reasons, we will find challenges starting an ISP in this area, but we think that there's a lot of hope and promise, because though we would struggle to find skilled technicians and engineers to help implement this, there's a lot of pride in this community, and people will want to come here to help improve the community. And there are programs like the Broadband Infrastructure Training Program that are going to attract people from this region and surrounding regions to grow in education about improving ISPs and broadband access. So there's places like Hawking College and Tri-County that can continue to supply workers, even though it's going to be a challenge getting them initially. Next slide, please. On the same note, we want to put our first location in Athens, Ohio, because of the resources that are already here. Athens itself, Athens City, is pretty good when it comes to internet because the university, they want to make the internet good here. So we're going to start here, and we're going to find qualified employees and students who are willing to take on a project that is going to deeply improve a community. So we'll be able to find that talent and those resources in Athens with the university, with Hawking College, with Tri-County. And Athens is in the middle is like pretty much the crossroads of Southeast Ohio. So it'll be pretty easy to expand from there to wherever area there is demand in the future. Next slide, please. And then sustainability is so important in the current, in like new businesses starting. You always want to consider sustainability, especially in an area that has been so hurt by businesses in the past. And there is a lot of climate activism in this area that people want to seek social justice regarding sustainability. And a lot of them don't have a voice because of internet access. There's very little ability to get voices heard about environmental justice in this area. And we think improving internet access for this area will encourage a lot more activism in terms of the issues that Southeast Ohio specifically struggles with. We also want to prioritize local materials and reducing emissions, and also buying new sustainable materials because they are new and high quality, and we won't have waste because they won't need fixed all the time, and that'll make our network the best it can be. And then once we're done with our materials, we will work to dispose of them in the proper avenues. So there are a lot of people that are interested in an internet service in this area. And here are 3 psychographics that Max is going to tell you about, that Max is going to tell you about.
All right, so we split our target market up into 3 different sectors, but they can definitely overlap. Firstly, being young families, like Olivia was talking about earlier. I mean, if not most of schoolwork is done on the computer now, online. So families either moving here or just starting here are definitely going to need fast, reliable internet for their children to get their schoolwork done, or even just for leisure activities. And the next group is going to be digital nomads, which are people who they live a flexible lifestyle. So they might work from home and have flexible work environments as well, but they need to be able to have fast, reliable internet so they're able to connect with their employer and their colleagues to get their work done. And lastly, it's going to be mom and pop shops. So it's just going to be like your local businesses, and having good internet will help these businesses be able to thrive, be able to get the work done that they need to get work done, and be able to actually implement more local businesses into our Southeastern Ohio community. Next slide, please. All right, next, we're going to go into our marketing plan. So we started off, this is our direct marketing. So we're going to be doing mailers. So we'll be sending mailers to areas in Southeastern Ohio of high interest to us that will include information about our internet services, as well as information on how to join our email list. Next slide, please. And then the next step in our marketing process will be community involvement. So we'll be sponsoring like local sports teams or local initiatives just to get our brand name out there. And we'll be able to leverage these close-knit communities that Southeastern Ohio has. And by doing this, we can convince the influential members of our community that we'll be able to help communicate that we're providing a good service to everyone else in the community. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand it over to Matt for opportunities for state funding.
Absolutely. So, building a project like this or to this scale can be very difficult, especially that it can be quite costly. Fortunately for us, though, this topic of providing internet access to areas where it really doesn't exist has become a forefront for a lot of different government funding. So some of the opportunities we found for just state funding is the Ohio Broadband Expansion Grant Program, the Ohio Third Frontier Broadband Innovation and Initiative, and then Connect Ohio Last Mile Fund. So most of these programs are designed to essentially fund companies trying to almost reach the last mile, as the last one says, really ensuring that we're focusing on places that are often overlooked or forgotten, and making sure that we're able to connect them to the rest of the world. Make sure that they're up to date as much as maybe a Columbus or even in Athens, Ohio. They have the opportunities in front of them, so they can they can work from home, or they can ensure that their education isn't being disrupted. So being able to work for opportunities and collect grants is a huge opportunity for us to collect a lot of financing for our project. Next slide, please. So in our preliminary round, we talked about, have we reached out to other companies? And we really hadn't thought about that, but I realized we're really missing out on an idea called internet peering. So essentially, this is directly connecting separate internet networks for traffic exchange, which means, so if we have different, if we're competing with other companies, they're going to have different customers, and traffic is going to intersect. So instead of having to go through a third party and pay the fees necessary, by internet peering, it's a mutual beneficial relationship, ensuring that you connect your internet services. So consumers not only have a better network access, but we also reduce latency and lower operational costs because we don't have to pay third party fees. So collaborating and partnering with like local firms like Connect SCP enhances service quality and supports regional internet accessibility, which is really all we're about. And finally, is the startup equipment and staffing. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get on a call with a representative from Unify to kind of discuss some of the necessary equipment needs to start up a ISP on a tier 3 scale. So a lot of this equipment here is kind of like full, is what we'll need. Some of the equipment though can be a little difficult to estimate, including like how many feet of cables we're going to need. That all depends on how far how great our outreach is initially, as well as how far we need to expand to. So that can always be expanded upon during later times. And then finally, some of the staffing here. What we mostly need are field technicians, people to be able to go out and solve internet issues if a line goes down or somebody's internet's out. We have the necessary people to go out and make those adjustments and fix the problems for them, as well as some customer service representatives, ideally from the area. That way we're able to kind of develop our customer service rep would be able to develop, customers would know they're dealing with somebody from southeastern Ohio. And then finally, too, the technicians are probably going to work from their homes as well. We talked about if we're trying to service counties farther away, it could be a little difficult and it costly to send somebody an hour and a half out. Plus, it could take a while. So workers working from their homes can ensure we can access distant counties without having very long wait times. And so with that, though, on the last slide, we'd like to thank you very much for listening, and had a great time doing this presentation for everybody. So thank you again.
Yeah, we'll take any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. If you could go back to, could we go back to the startup cost slide? If not, that's okay. So given your startup costs of what you potentially need, do you have an idea of what you would need to price your service at and how many customers you would need to break even at that price point?
I do believe so. So on our report, we have kind of some of the metrics breaking down, like our return on investment. So I believe we have our pricing at $50 a month and then $100 a month for businesses. And assuming, I think we started off with like our first year plan was collecting 50 customers, which can seem advantageous, but assuming 20% growth each year in terms of customer base. So what is that? Like 65, so next year being 65. So ideally, our first start is 50 customers on the annual subscription there, followed by like the $50 and the $100 model.
If I can, just a follow up to that question is you presented the year one financials that Crystal was alluding to, and you do have that. You have 50 business or 50 business, and then also individual customers. But what's the ramp up? Because you're not going to get all of those day one, right? It's going to take months to get from one customer to the numbers that you have at the end of the first year. So did you give any thought to, or what thought did you give to what's it going to take from the period that you launch with marketing materials until you get one customer, until you get 5 customers, until you get projections that you have for that full year one?
Yes, so our plan would be to really hit the most influential members of the community first. So through doing mailers and getting interest, starting an email list, and going and doing word of mouth advertising in more like influential communities, we know that the culture here is very word of mouth advertisement based. So like if you get somebody that the community trusts to go over to your service and we hit them hard with marketing and talking to them about our goals and them wanting to invest in our company through being a customer. And will then be able to go and talk about it with other people because it's exciting. It's very exciting. When my family would hear about, oh, this person we currently have, we would quickly switch because of how a good internet service. So by hitting influential people that have a lot of connections, we would hope to be able to grow pretty exponentially for an internet service that works.
From your initial marketing efforts, you'll be able to hit those numbers fairly quickly. Those as big.
Yeah, through like it would be like exponential growth advertising.
And just follow up. Have you identified who those key influential?
I mean, I could name some names that I think would be.
No, just curious. There's a. Okay, yeah, I don't need to get into specific. I was just wondering if you have a
So, like, that are like that own businesses in the community or have kids in the local schools, the principal of the high school
that's good. And just just something to take a look at. There's a really good book wrote who's really a well-known and accomplished writer. It's called The Tipping Point. A whole section of it in that book, and he talks about attracting people that you're just different groups, and maybe just worth taking a look at that, seeing like.
Yeah, thank you. He's putting it in his notes app. So
Malcolm Gladwell, yeah, Gladwell. And I don't get any, money off of it. You go buy it. Yeah.
One thing I do last time, and I thank you for taking the initiative other places like Southwest Energy that will be doing the same on that.
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you.
Bill yourselves as a tier 3. Who would be the tier 2 that to buy service from, basically? The region?
HughesNet's a pretty large one here, as well as like a Frontier. The Spectrum is more of like a tier 1, 2. So
Okay.
that, so
Listen to
we have a few. We could always rent from a tier 1 as well, but I nice from a tier 2.
And I apologize. I had this information and don't remember it, but if you would what would be the rate that you to get their service? You're going to charge your customers and pay the tier 2 provider more than half of that.
It's I don't think we have it on the.
And I apologize because that graphic is jumbled. I can't read any of that. What? I got bad internet.
You're their first customer.
Thank
Um,
you.
Affordable prices are kind of hard to like contact anybody specifically about an average price, but typically it's between a month from them, so that's like cost to rent like line time.
We recognize that we're not projected to meet our goals with profit, that we could adjust our pricing based on that when we go into more research of it.
I'd like to ask a question in a different vein. In terms of how you're structured, it seems like these technical positions are really important. And do any of you have any direct experience in, say, being the engineer or the field rep and actually doing that work? It's okay if you don't, but I'm just curious if any of you have any direct experience.
I don't have any
No.
experience.
No, just a lot of YouTube videos and tinkering, man.
Okay, that's
We do find some really smart Tri-County kids that would know more than we do.
right. And it sounds like then, and that makes sense, but it sounds then that they would be very key to your enterprise. So kind of just looking at it another way, how are you going to split up the equity of your company among the three?
That's a good question. So we have salaries for all of these people that we're going to employ, but if there is like we would split up equity, but also splitting up equity to like a chief engineer that we have would also be important if they are interested in getting in with the investment of the business.
Yeah,
I mean, it's always challenging to give equity up, but if the person is really key on the tech side and it's something that, you know, your skills aren't in that area, that may be a way to get somebody who, one, does it for less salary initially, has an upside, and two, you know, doesn't learn how to do it on your dime and then go off and do it on themselves because they have the experience with you.
Yeah,
Something to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you.
thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to let the judges hang on their hooks and go ahead with the next presentation. Ready to bring up Denison University. They're going to present Dorm Buddies.
Yeah, we can move. Sorry. You're right.
I can hear him. Yeah, we can all hear him.
Only does roommate experience negatively affect a student's experience within the room, but also the overall student experience at the university.
Well, this is just one student we're talking about in one college, and the universities are also getting affected. On the next slide, we can see that 1 out of 5 students with a bad roommate experience say they are less likely to come back to college, which will drop the retention rates of universities.
And this just goes to show how important roommate experience is for college experience. In the next slide, we'll see that we took a survey last year and we got 192 responses. And roommate experience was the third most impactful thing in the college experience for all the students on our campus. And this just goes to show how important roommate experience is. Academics and food were first and second, which are basic necessities for any student.
Now that we've talked about the problem, let's see how our app can directly solve all of these issues using our app. So we're going to walk you through the features in the next few slides. One more.
So the first feature is accountability. We understand that all roommates are busy. Students have a jam-packed life, and it's kind of hard to manage their tasks. Our app helps develop shared tasks where you can split it up into multiple parts. And then it provides automated reminders to remind each roommate to do their tasks until it's complete, when it will go on to the next slide.
We know that living with people could be tough. be it someone you lived with before or living for the first time, right? We want to be able to create a space where you work with your roommates in a form of a team. It could be a point system that you compete with other rooms or other dorms, and there'll be a leaderboard system where you're able to compete with them in that same point system.
And on the next slide, we can see how our last feature, the privacy feature, will help solve the problem of wanting the room for an hour or two for an interview, for example. A lot of our students expressed that their biggest issue is reserving the room for an hour or two for some privacy or just respecting each other's boundaries. So this will help create a more healthy and transparent relationship if they can easily have the access of asking for the room for a couple of minutes or an hour.
Next slide. And if we look at it all individually, they could all individually exist by itself. But Dorm Buddies is an app that brings all of them together. It's a one-stop shop that helps in fostering roommate experiences, also allowing universities to reduce conflict rates.
Now, we've talked the talks of you, but let's walk them through our prototype and show them what our app can actually do. So we do have a prototype, which I'll show you in the next slide. On the first page, you will go on the lounge where you can kind of see what other roommates are saying, what other dorms are saying, and see if there's anything you need to get done. We have the do not disturb button like I was talking about. You press that button and you can reserve the room for an hour or two. On the main page, you have your task and what you need to do for today. So you can really prioritize and get that done. On an announcement, you can see what the other roommates are saying and see if you need to get anything done too. On the search page, you can also search anything that you need to. And also, if you have any questions or you have any concerns about the housing situation, you can directly access that through the FAQs. And you can also message the resident advisor from this and also the housing team so you can get the quickest response to your answers.
So on the next slide, we're going to be talking about competition. Dorm Buddies is a new market opportunity because currently residential life communities are using roommate matching apps. This focuses on the initial pairing. So anything from Roomie or Roomeasy apps are used. Dorm Buddies is a new market opportunity because we're focused on the longevity of the roommate experience rather than just the initial pairing.
And in the next slide, we will talk about the business model. This is another way we will stay sustainable. Our subscription model would be to universities because we know that they are our customers. We have two kinds of packages that we give to colleges. One is the platform membership, which is basically the normal version. Second is the API subscription, which is just a technical way of saying that you can customize the app however you want. So if a college gets the API subscription part of it, they can customize the app to change certain features, add their watermark, put certain things that are very specific to their college. And they will also be able to collect data on the students so that they can use that data to not only create tools to improve student experience.
So on the next slide, we're going to be looking at why would a university want to invest in a subscription to our app? Well, our base model is only $5,000, which would fund a university like the size of Denison, which has 2,400 students. And this subscription of only $5,000 is amazing because there's a potential loss of about $50,000 for every student that transfers out of the university. Not only is it a bang for your buck, but it also provides the university valuable data to further eliminate roommates leaving the university.
Well, Susanna, that sounds like a no-brainer to me. On the next slide, we'll see that we actually have 28,000 universities in the whole world that we can actually access and 181 universities in Ohio itself. But let's talk about what we have access to right now, and that's the Ohio 5 colleges. On the next slide, we can see how Denison is connected to these Ohio 5 colleges, which means we can get our app running on our campus. And once we get that done, we can get it running on any of these other campuses because they have similar colleges just like ours.
And not only are we just talking about our Ohio 5 colleges, which will be our next steps in our growth plan, but this also means that we can really easily connect with OU, their main campus in Athens, and further support this southeastern Ohio region as well.
And next slide.
So what does our 2024 roadmap look like? Currently, we are doing experiments and continuing market research.
We also have approval from our housing team to actually release a beta version. The prototype that you saw on the previous slide, that exists. And hopefully we want to get it out onto our campus and get some testing and feedback and data on it.
And third, we want to be able to talk to campus group to integrate our app. Now, you may be asking who's Campus Groups, right? Campus Groups is another organization that exists in around 200 plus colleges in America. And they basically provide apps and features about event planning, about different things on campus organizations that are done on each campus. If we are able to get our app integrated into Campus Groups, which is a bigger organization, we will not only be able to reach 200 plus colleges, but we will also be able to save the cost of actually making the entire app.
Yep. So if you're a college roommate looking to improve your student experience,
or if your university trying to decrease roommate conflicts and increase retention rates,
Dorm Buddies is here to help.
Thank you.
On our next slide, we also would like to thank our mentors and our advisors who have been with us throughout our journey.
yep, on the next slide, we can see our advisory board, the people who have kind of helped made our app what it is, and also are continuing to support us throughout this process so we can get everything done efficiently. Thank you very much for your time. We're open to any questions that you guys have now.
Very much, and we have a big catch of our judges, so let's let them ask away.
So I do have a question. Is this just for your target market would be just for colleges, correct?
As of now, yes.
Okay, so do you have plans to take this to the next level? Like when you graduate from college and you become roommates and you're in the real, the workforce, are you planning on doing something like that if this is successful?
Yeah, so on a very small scale, obviously for universities is what we're targeting right now, because we know university students the best. We are university students and we have this issue every day. But obviously when we were doing our market research, we talked to a lot of different type of people. And they said even married couples could use this in their houses when they first move into each other's houses, and simple things like when you go into a new job in a new city, you have to look for roommates and you have to kind of find a way to kind of live with them. This process is not a one-time thing. It's a lifelong thing that you could use at any point. So we hope to start off with universities and then eventually get to a point where we can kind of expand it out to a lot of different types of people around the US.
Also, as Arth just mentioned, if we start with universities, it also helps our marketing. So if students are used to using it in a university experience, then they may want to continue using it further down the line. So that way we already have our connections, because at Denison, we're a very relational school, and they really encourage us to make sure that we're making connections with the schools around us as well. So by starting small, as Arth said, and scaling up, it also helps our marketing plan, because then having more students kind of acquainted with it might mean that they would like to use it later down the line. And any individuals who are not acquainted with the app would also be able to view it in some other marketing practices as well.
Additional stuff to the marketing aspect of it is that if we have other marketing things that we plan to do too, which is like merchandise and games. We are thinking of coming up with roommate games or like relationship building games, which we know exist and are doing really, really well. But we feel like getting certain things or certain additional subsidiaries of Dorm Buddies, which are related to that trust building or roommate building games, could also be an additional revenue format for us to not only reach to colleges, but also to people around, be it, as Art said, married couples, friends, dating relationships, anything.
Okay, thank you. Now I have one more question. Your marketing, will you go to like high school, college fairs and promote your
So
idea?
we plan to work directly with university campuses. So we're selling to universities, and it will be an app that the students can use. Some of the ways that students would use it, and it would be incentivized, are having RA communication. So that way there's an automatic need for the app on the campus. And the university is the customer, because I don't think it's something that students would initially be like, oh, I want to pay for that. But the university would be gaining the data to help their retention rates, because as we talked about earlier, rooming it's not only detrimental to have a negative roommate experience, but it also affects the overall college experience.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm a faculty member and I work with tons and 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 tons of students. Um, I you're really trying to change human behavior. So even if you sell it to the university, we can't get our students to download Blackboard or Canvas, much less something that's kind of extra. I can't even get students to come to the classes that they're paying for. So other than kind of intrinsically wanting to have a positive student experience, the university can't make students download it even if they were to buy it. So what is your how do we cross that barrier?
So we have an incentive system. As earlier talking about the presentation, we had this point system thing. In our college, specifically, if you think about what are we looked at a few things that are very important for a student, and a student would always care about that. Housing, right? They always care about housing or where they would get house, or depending on where. So on our campus, every individual is housed on the Denison campus. So we get a lottery system and then they get a house. So for us, we understood what the most important thing for college students are at our college, and then we give them an incentive. So there's a leaderboard system where each room is getting a point system, and in that point system, they are able to reach on top of the leaderboard. Then they have a ability to get a better time slot so that they can get better housing. So it's basically us trying to incentivize and basically gamify the app so that we can reach to college students. Us being college students ourselves, we know what's really, really important and crucial for college students and how we think. And we believe that us being in those college students, we understand what they need, and our app is going to provide that to them in any form of incentive, be it like free food, coupons, or any local restaurants that will not only get them a certain kind of incentive to be able to work with their roommates, but also be able to use the app on a day-to-day basis.
And as Suvir mentioned, if the college wouldn't want to opt into having a housing leaderboard or that doesn't fit with their housing process, we would also use gift cards and other forms of enticement, I guess, for any college student, because I think everyone loves free food or is looking for their next gift card to Amazon or anything like that. So we could also do that.
Finally, we want to make a lot of the processes that currently happen kind of via email or via different forms like group chats or GroupMe. We want to make them kind of mandatory in terms of everything has to be done through the app. So for example, if we were to include the housing selection process on the app, that would make the students having to use the app on a daily basis. Things like if you need to communicate with your resident advisor, the only way you can do that is through the app. So doing things like that where we can get the university's daily processes and kind of implement it into the app itself, it would make it something that's kind of mandatory and has to be used in order for university students to function.
Basically, to make it simple, just allowing students who actually use the app get the benefit from it, while the others who are not able to use it will not get the benefits. That would just entice those who don't get to use it to see their friends get it, and then they will eventually hop onto the idea too, which is what all social media apps do.
Just, if I may, just following up on Crystal's question around the potential of students actually using it, and then universities actually being able to influence their students to use it. Let's just go back to the beta that you're talking about. So you have potentially there's a beta, or you're working on a beta now at Denison, where you're going to school. Is that real? Like, is that actually taking place? Because I'm curious as to how you are working with Denison to work on the beta and encourage students to participate in that beta.
So currently we obviously have the prototype, which we have a kind of an on-staff member who has been able to code that app for us on a kind of an MVP level,
right,
just so we can kind of get that, get some feedback on it, get it tested and used. So what we've talked to our housing team about is, hey, this is the app we have. And they said, okay, why don't you try with a couple of dorms where you are giving this app out to maybe one residence hall with 4 different rooms and see if it's working on that level. And then in a couple of weeks, we expanded out to 2 buildings, and then eventually taking it to a place where a lot of our campus is using it, but kind of using the feedback from those initial groups that we kind of test it with to kind of improve the app as we go along before we release the final thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And in terms of our beta, this is what we're planning on doing at the beginning of the fall, as we have just gotten the prototype.
Right. So just a question on then the technology and then back to your rollout. Do any of you have app development experience right now?
None of us have app development experience, but a couple of us have worked with different websites as well as using no code apps like Glide. So if for any reason there were any complications, you could also resort back to that for beta testing.
Right,
And then
'cause having actual app development experience is key. That's the most important person or one of the most important people of your team. And if you don't have that, my recommendation is you get it somehow. And kind of when you do that, you have to be careful. Just a little word of advice is that, there's all kinds of phones, and sometimes it works on Apple phones, sometimes code works on Android phones, Google phones. So just make sure that you cover all the bases for something that may work in an Android environment or won't work in an iOS environment. But back to the prototype, I'm just interested because I think Crystal's right on in that the universities will ultimately want to see who's using it. And if you can show them that people are using it, then there's a better chance of getting universities to continue to pay for it. It just seems like you really need to have your case locked down with, say, Denison, have that, airtight, maybe over the people who just come into school next year as freshmen, then build off of that. And maybe their sophomores and the incoming freshmen use.
Exactly.
The toughest thing to get is your first customer. And you're in a kind of tricky position of your customer is going to pay for it is the university, but the ultimate users are the students. And as I'm sure you're aware, getting the students to actually use it is challenging. The skinnier and the smaller you roll out, the better. It's great to look at what will happen once you have 52 colleges, but you're not going to get to 52 colleges or 500 colleges unless you get to one, and you're not going to get then you got to get to two. So kind of just think about it in that it's a kind of a long-term play. What years are you in right now?
So I'm a senior currently at Denison.
I'm a sophomore.
You're a
I'm a-
sophomore. And so it's sophomore, senior. What's the other gentleman? Sorry.
Junior.
Junior. Okay, so that's good. So you have some traction. Some people are going to be around because that's really important. And just one other thing, just to think about. And I think I mentioned this last time around the development, is that the universities, they're key. They're going to pay for it, but they're going to want to know how the students are actually using it, who is using it, who's not using it. And if you can show that the people are actually using it, then you have some good evidence on the use cases of, and you had a slide up there, if one student doesn't come back, that's 50K. So if you perhaps show some improvement there in what it has been, what those kind of trends have been in the past and what they are after using your app, it's going to be easier to sell it. If you can show that less people left the school here the first year they had the app, it's easier to sell a 5K subscription than it is you can't. So you have to make sure that whatever you're going to claim you can do, that you actually can show that in using your product.
Mhm.
That
Yep.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that
Definitely.
feedback.
Thank you for the feedback.
Any other questions from the judges?
I just have one more. How are you going to split up? I asked the previous group this, so you may have advanced warning, but how are you going to split up the equity of this? Like, who owns it?
Yep. So as of now, the way that we've done it is 50-50. Susanna is a new member into the team, so we haven't really talked about the equity aspect of her, but as of now, it's 50-50 on both the ends.
And then also, in terms of our app development, all of that has been done with contract work.
Right.
So that will just be a contract cost. And then any extra equity after that will be divided up.
We're hoping to be able to get a little bit of testing, beta testing on campus, and then be able to use that testing to not only reach out to investors and be able to give out some kind of equity in return of some kind of funding, so that we can use that funding to get an app development and a certain amount of team that be able to at least make it into a proper startup, and actually be able to get more customers than just the one college that we have it.
So just two other things, Susanna, your immediate thing as soon as you're done is to, get equity from your two people on your left and the
Go
right.
for it. It's
Yeah.
split a third
Yeah,
from
that's got to change. And she's a sophomore, so she's going to be there longer than you guys. And more seriously, so the other thing is just take a look at, or have you taken a look at the technical majors at Denison, in terms of there could be computer science people who would be interested in doing this and getting some experience. And you might be able to actually use that as leverage with Denison, in that this is almost a project, right? That students can work on and leverage some of their efforts into developing it. Maybe even Denison wants to, brand it as a Denison product or something. So that's, don't rule out the stuff that's right in front of you.
That's a really good idea. We've talked to a lot of our computer science students, and a lot of agreed, but just the amount of coursework they have has meant that they haven't wanted to take on a project. But I really like your suggestion of potentially pairing with a class or with the university on that, because we haven't thought of that. And that would be
If you get a professor who's interested in it, then that can be, and then that could extend to every semester. So
yeah.
Yep. Great job.
Well, very well. We're going to let our judges off the hook and put them in the barrel of deliberation. So they will be leaving us here and deliberating, and be back in a few minutes. In the time, I want to share with you a bit about the Shark Challenge, and we are very, very pleased to have two instrumental guests here with us. One is, you can't say Shark Challenge Ohio University Eastern without thinking of Michael Shore. Michael is with us from, I believe, Philadelphia today, and I would like him to share with us a little bit about how this all started. I believe it was 7 years ago, and the challenge started in St. Clairsville, but tell us a little more, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. And by the way, you are in rare, well, no, not rare form, but exceptionally good form tonight. I love your humor. Your jokes are great. And of course, you're just so natural and comfortable here. Because
look over your shoulder. There may be a hook coming.
There may be a hook coming. Uh-oh. Okay. Let me think it for a second. Yeah, this is technically year 9. We skipped 7 and 8. And I'll just mention, parenthetically, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2021, and it just wasn't the right time to try to continue this thing on. So I was thrilled to be back on this year with this year 9, but we did skip the 2. Anyway, so it started 8 years ago. I think it was 2016, with our dean at the time, Dean Abraham. And what occurred was that Tech Growth Ohio had made an overture, started to make overtures in our region to find some people who would be economic development partners, so to speak, and engage with them in different ways. And one afternoon, Paul Abraham said to me, "Mike, I've got a project for you for the weekend." He says, "Go home and come up with a better idea than this." He said, "Have a pitch competition and involving schools and figure out what you want it to be. But get a better idea." And I went home, and of course he told me a little bit more than that, but it was pretty basic. And I went home and I fell in love with the concept. And I saw him on the Monday, unless I wasn't coming back to campus on Tuesdays then, but I came on Tuesday and told him, "I think this is great." And there we were. And then the question was, how do we do it? And when Kyle gets back in here, he can probably talk about it, remembering more of the details than I am. But that's the beginning of Shark Challenge. And it was very much a local regional event. And then gradually we began to make our connections further out through my business connections in Toronto. And we, unfortunate incident that we don't have one of our judges with us tonight, but we've had for 2 years people from the credit industry in Toronto join us. We've had Drexel University, which last year won the championship. So we've got the Philly connection, also a judge from Philly. And then as you see, people that we know more frequently in from Ohio University, it's got this small, local, regional, and broader spread. So it's been kind of exciting. I love it.
Well, I really appreciate that early on you brought on other colleges. As an example, Belmont College, which is just right across the street from Ohio University Eastern, they participated. Now, through some changes in COVID and changes in personnel, we haven't been involved this year, but I have a instructor very interested. I know he has communicated with Michael. We just didn't have the time to get it together this year. So hopefully Belmont will have a team next year
Yeah.
and participate in this. And it's nice to see the diversity between colleges and private schools, public schools, community colleges, and the like,
Right.
all coming together. And the projects have all been excellent. Is Kyle on? I want to call on.
Kyle is coming back. He was waiting for all the judges to reach him. And
Well, Kyle,
oh,
so
wait a
we've
second. Yeah. Bear with me 1 second. I just want to let him know what state we are. And he wants to get back in. I think the judge had a question for him on operations.
Okay. Well, we'll let him take care of those needs, and we'll ask a couple questions of Kyle when he gets back in. But Kyle has been the person that we've always leaned on and to make this work. And it's nice to have a student come through. And but another question to Michael, and of course you teach finance at Ohio University Eastern. How have you seen that change some of your students by participating in this? Do you have any success stories of them going on after graduation?
I don't know any specifics. I remember a couple of years ago, we had a state senator who was left office and was working in lobbying and government relations, and he was interested in a couple of our students' proposals. I think from the early stage proposals, I think what it did mostly was it sharpened presentation skills and entrepreneurial skills. So people took this stuff onto grad school with them. But I haven't had anybody write back to me say yet what we've done. I think what I'm noticing, particularly tonight, is I know startups don't always happen the way they want, and people with great ideas may end up doing something different in their startups. But I hear 2 proposals tonight where I would not be surprised to get somebody sending me a message in 18 months saying, we're starting to look for some angel investors. So we'd like to move it to that phase. And I think partly now that we're reaching a more sophisticated level is we would like to add on some of the assistance, because I think it would be well taken and put to good use. Just as, we've had Charles Michael, the New York voice and presentation coach, worked with the students after the preliminary round, and he'd observed their work in advance, and he'd met individually with them. You can see the polish that it has from having somebody from a theater background work with them, because after all, we are in theater in a sense, and like Shark Tank. But those presentation skills, and what I would like to be able to do is, without just replicating what already exists, because we have some great economic development support in the area, as you well know, but seeing, can we begin to introduce to this some people in different places who have connections and start to become a think tank. I remember when I was in Connecticut, I was involved with the MIT Enterprise Forum, and it would create a board of directors for a night for a corporation. Very much that's what our judges are doing at an initial level, but it would be nice to get that mentorship level to go on at the next level. I think that would probably be a real good thing for us.
I really enjoyed the short time that I spent with Charles Michael, and I thought that was the perfect person to bring in. And maybe you can elaborate that connection and how he got involved with this and what he did with the students.
Yeah, it's a fun story. As you know, because we have palled around a lot and we talk very openly, I have connections in many different worlds. So when I may be dealing with a credit and collections person in Toronto on an academic or another type of project, by the same token, I may be dealing with people in the New York theater. And so through one of those connections, I met Charles Michael, and I was very, very impressed with him. And what I thought would be helpful to the students, as Dennis Fox had done as a member of faculty and would continue to support us as well, except he's involved in a production and in rehearsal, was I talked to Charles about trying to help the students gain their real presence, as he would talk about it, in an online setting, and to be able to it's not helping one team above the other because everybody gets the benefit. It's if their students are willing and interested in doing it, they benefit equally. But why does it help Shark Challenge? What we'd like is for this event to be known more and more as a really polished event that's really special. And part of that is great judges. Part of that is a wonderful MC who's just got the personality of the thing. And you do. I mean, you know that. And everybody in St. Clairsville knows that. And so it helps a lot. And so to be able to give more polished sophistication so that when people see this video, one, they may be interested in getting their school involved. Two, they may be very open to an appeal, say, from our current dean, Dave Rohall, who's been an incredible supporter and was able to find money so we can increase the prizes this year. And we're going to go to another level. And I'm not pinning Dave into a corner. He's very committed to trying to do that. But we need some additional money besides what Tech Growth Ohio is to be able to support that. So to begin to get more polish into it. I see Kyle is here, and I know
Right.
you'll want to ask him some questions, but I want to say a couple things about Kyle. And for the benefit of students who are participating, Kyle was my student and was one of 4 interns who worked on developing this thing, sometimes with me and sometimes better when I was not there so they could be creative. They were kind of like the writers on the Dick Van Dyke Show. And one of my colleagues who had the office across the hall from Shark Challenge would tell me the stories, but he thought it was wonderful too. And I could tell there was a creative vibe going on. Well, Kyle stayed with this thing. And as he knows, I will describe him when anybody asks me about him. I said, Kyle Stutman is the one person who can slam the door to my office on his way out and walk back in whenever he's ready and we get right to work. It's that kind of relationship. And now I know him as a married man, as a father, a fellow who's moving up in career, and the idea that he would stay on to be associate producer. I mean, this is a great alumni gift or alumnus gift to a university. So with that said, Kyle, you've got an awful lot to live up to, but I'll let Ed grill you.
So Kyle, you're on mute. So if you could take yourself off of mute, and sorry for the phone in the background, it will go away. But yeah, we were talking about the early start of Shark Tank, and back when this became an idea. And of course, I've always associated Kyle with Shark Tank as that guy in the background making everything work. So I thought maybe you could share some of your reflections of the early on times. We used to meet in Shannon Hall. We used to have this in person, and then came all the technical challenges of going online and that. So maybe you could share and relate to us some of your history on this project.
No, absolutely, Ed. And thank you for doing this for so many years now that you've been MC and
couple.
Yes. Mike Shore, starting this thing back in, I think it's 2015 was the initial thought of it with, what is it, Mike? The call from the dean in Tech Growth Ohio, go do something different, go do something better. And just the thought of what can we do? And Mike brought this idea, up at that point of, Shark Tank, the popular show of investments. And so Shark Challenge was born from that. And yeah, the first year we did it in the Ohio University Eastern in the Common Lounge there, that we outfitted it with moving tables and chairs around. And we had 3 teams, and the next year we moved into the theater at Ohio University Eastern. And yeah, some years after, especially with COVID, having to move online. And now it's just really blossomed and grown into this thing that you can see it with the ideas that are coming through now. On a lot of it is it's so technological now, where before we had some really good ideas in the first few years. But were they as technologically advanced as they are now when we're talking about app development and we're talking about, internet protocol, things of this? And it's just grown to a point where the students themselves are taking it to a different level. And that's really encouraging to see, where one of these years, at some point, one of these ideas is going to stick, and it's going to develop itself, and it's going to grow into a real thing. And we're getting closer and closer to that point.
So I just want to give a little advice to our students here, our presenters, and that is to keep up with your instructors in college. And I'm going to share just a little story because Michael is the person I want to highlight. And I watched Michael for a year mentor a student. He would take that student out and involve them in community activities and different things. And he was a communication major, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but he is now our county recorder. And I'm proud to say I missed him at lunch yesterday because we were together at lunch every Tuesday because he is now a 2-week-old father. So he had a child, his wife had a child 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it has just been so fun through Michael to watch this young student grow. So my advice to all of you is keep up and, let people know what they're doing. I have students call me and, hey, I'm in the area. How about stopping by and I'll take you to lunch? And I said, well, one thing you didn't learn, if you ever take a professor or go to lunch with the professor always buys. So you need to learn that, but it's nice to watch what different people like Kyle and others done. So I just wanted to pass that on to Michael. I watched you mentor this young man and just have watched him bloom in his professional career. And we spend a lot of time together outside of Rotary, outside of college, and we're just a great family. He is.
I want to remind you of a pleasant thing that you did along that storyline, Ed, because when I first brought him to a chamber meeting and you were president, you said, you've got this fine student here and he's good with, presentation and he's developing in the world.
And this was after several meetings. Yes.
Oh yeah, I guess that's right. After a few meetings. And you said, how about having him come and be the presiding officer over one of the meetings? And he did. And that was great. And so I thank you for recognizing me, but I want you to know it's a platform. We're on this thing together and you've got that spirit. And that was a great memory for me. I love that day forever.
Yeah, that was good. That was good for everybody. So got me off the
Kyle,
hook.
do I always buy lunch still? I don't know. Last time it was a
yes.
cheesesteak in Philadelphia, I think.
Yes.
Around the expense account.
Yeah, Mike took me on a nice tour of Philadelphia. That was nice.
Great. So I also want to have a special call out to Dean Rohal. Dean is a close personal friend of mine and a good supporter of a Shark Challenge. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit. He isn't the one that was involved with its inception. That was Dean Abraham. But talk about the relationship with Dean Rohal and his support that he's giving this giving you for this project.
Yeah, it's very helpful. And others will recognize it. There's that time when you're working on something and you've got to take a stretch and you don't know how it's going to work out. And your ability to do it is because somebody's there standing with you and saying, go ahead, I'm for this. And so one of the things Dave Rohal has said is, he knew it was going to be time. I was starting to get my health back and energy and start to do it. And I'll kick this out of it too. He said, I'd like you to bring it back, but what would you need? What have your goals been? We talked a little bit about prizes. And he said, let me see. I can't guarantee it. We have a even higher goal for first prize, but let's find out in the future. Yeah, I'm not going to commit anyone to it yet. But he said, let me go out and get you some money. I'll see what I can come up with. So it went a few months and Dave was very kind and caring. And he would say to me, for example, I am sorry to make you wait this long. I want to explore what I can. And then he said, I can come up with this much. And it wouldn't be a good negotiating for me position. Dave, I know you're listening, for me to say, oh, that's all I ever really wanted. But he knows it wasn't. But he said, can you do something effective at this level? And I said, yes, I believe we do. And Kyle is right at the heart of this thing because we'd always had issues over the years. Could we get a big enough prize to be an incentive? And then did we need to put more money into the first prize and not have second prize or third prize in order to make it go? And we were tight on that day. This year, Dave Rohal made it possible for us to have a notable enough $2,500 first prize and still to be able to have something more than a coffee mug, but a meaningful cash prize for second, for third. So Dave was good there. There are budget issues you deal with, as a manager in academia and a public institution where things get complicated, and you've been at it 7 or 8 years and it's all consistent. Well, you've got it, and then something changes, but nobody knew, and you're facing other things. So where he's also been good is where somebody might have said, sorry, things didn't line up quite right. We can't provide the support for the live stream this year. He made sure it happened and called people into play and into action to make sure it would. So Dave is great there. He lets people know who are involved. And I see him consistently, how much he appreciates it. So it's always from him, thank you for what you've done. And as you can see, being able to give a live stream like this, we may do a couple of tweaks next year, but what Ian Bell of Beltree Productions has done by our being able to hire him is create a much more interesting graphic, and the physical shark or the images of the shark to go along with your references. I think that's way better. I think Kyle's probably very happy with the looks of it. He has much more influence on design than I do. He was the one who kept saying it's time for a new logo, and we moved on from there. And let me turn it over to him. He's the boss in this department.
Well, I got a question for Kyle, so I'm gonna let me.
Oh, fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over. That's that classroom thing. And what can I tell you?
But first, I want to Ian. I just want to call out Ian and thank him for all of his support and making this today work. And I appreciate what he went through as we started, and we had a couple bumps in the road, but we got through it, and the show is going on. But Kyle, you've been in this since its inception. I'd like to have you put your special glasses on and kind of share your vision of where you would like to see this go. What would be your dream for Shark Tank? Now you're removed from the university, you're in business, but what would you like to see Shark Tank be in 3, 5, several years down the road?
Yeah, I think I am removed from the university. I graduated in 2017, but continued to work with Mike and on this. But I think going down the line, just seeing the growth of it to expand to even more schools, more competition, and that's just only going to better the product as this thing goes. And like I said, with the ideas, we can see them. They're getting sharper. They're getting the presentations are getting better and better each year. And like I said, I think I said it earlier, but I'm gonna go back on that. I think the ultimate goal of this is to see a startup company get off the ground and to see someone succeed with an idea that they brought to this challenge and that they thought through and they worked on a team with, and they got feedback from area business people and chamber members and people in business, experienced people, where they can take that and go back and make it better and make it something that is sustainable as an actual business for them and an actual career. I think in time, whether it's this year, whether it's 3 years from now, whether it's 10 years from now, that's the goal, to bring some form of economic impact from this competition.
Okay, thank you very much. And as I look at my screen and I see everybody kind of lined up across the top, I see the different schools and that. I want to thank you all for participating. You are all ambassadors for this project, so we hope you share this experience that you're having. I received an envelope, actually a text from our judges, and I am very pleased to announce the winner. And I think we have all our judges back. So I am very pleased to announce that Dorm Buddies from Denison University will be our first place winner. So congratulations to everybody. Everybody's a winner in my mind. And I just think this is a great opportunity. I want to thank you all for your participation. I want to thank Michael and all the other support people that have made this happen. Ohio University Eastern and the Beltree Productions of Columbus, who made this live streaming. So thank you for joining Shark Challenge. Thank you for attending tonight, and congratulations to Denison University.